Okay, hello class. Today I'm going to be dictating your finals. I'm going to start with 100 lit, number one final. Remember, you should speed build on your own and just access the tests for today, okay, for finals. This is only if you need any dailies or, if you've already passed them and you keep wanting to see that you've passed them, that's fine as well. So the 100 lit number one contains one word and it's semi-conscious and it's hyphenated. So it's a long answer. The question is, tell us about your abduction and final assault. This is 100 lit number one test for 5 minutes. Well, I ran out of gas. So a truck driver took me to the gas station. There was a woman kind of on the right side of the station who was having car trouble. I asked her if it would be possible for her to give me a ride home. And she said she didn't know how long that it would be. She said, "These guys over there have been real nice. Why don't you ask them? They followed me off the highway. They have been helping me with my car." She said, "They are real nice. I am sure they would help you." So I asked them. One of them said, "After we get finished putting water in her radiator, we will help you take gas back to your car." Well, we left the gas station and I was giving them directions back to my car. And the one in the passenger side said, "I smell gas leaking." He bent down, supposedly to smell the gas. Then he pulled out a pipe and hit me on the head. He kept hitting me on the head. I started screaming, but he kept hitting me. He was hitting me all over my head. Then I remember hearing him push back or something behind the driver's seat, and he started choking me while he just kept beating me. And I tried to sit up to look for street signs to see where I was, and he wouldn't let me. I even said if they'd let me go, I'd give them my money. And he said, "No way." He just kept beating me. And the driver was giving him instructions, and he kept telling him, "Put her out, put her out." In other words, knock her out. And the other guy kept saying, "Wait till we get there. Wait till we get there." So in the meantime, I started kicking and scratching, kicking him in his face and scratching his eyes. And I said, "Please let me go, let me go." And they wouldn't let me go. And they would not stop fighting. And I said, "Will you let me go?" And he said, "No." And so, of course, I continued to fight. And I know that I was semi-conscious at least once or twice because when I kept coming to, I couldn't hear real clearly. But I knew that I was alive. And, I kept saying, "Let me go." Then they kept saying, "Stop fighting." And I said, "Will you let me go?" And the driver said, "No." He said, you are going to get fucked, and we are not going to let you go after we fuck you either. And I heard the driver say, shoot her. I don't care. I didn't see a gun. But a little while later, the passenger, the one who had been beating me, got a knife that he held on me. When I saw the knife, I just started to think clearly. And then you've got on your second 100 lit, also a long answer. So you have Minneapolis, Twin City, Dr. John, orthopedic consultants. And the question is, what course of treatment did the doctors prescribe? This is going to be your final 100 number 2 for 5 minutes. Well, at first, the doctor scared me, said that he felt that I had fractured my neck, and they put a huge brace on me from my waist to the top of my head, stabilizing me. And that really got me shook. And they evaluated me. And they weren't going to make a comment because they didn't see a terrible fracture or anything like they had first thought. And they still felt there was some type of significant injury that they weren't able to identify at the hospital there. He removed that huge brace from my torso and gave me a brace that went around my neck. And then he gave me a prescription, and he advised me to take it easy when I got back to Minneapolis and be evaluated if things did not start to improve. And that's basically all he said. When I got back to Minneapolis, and about the time my prescription for painkillers ran out, I started researching who would be a good orthopedic consultant who specialized in spinal care. And since I was new to the Twin City area, I had to do some legwork to find a good doctor. And that took a few weeks. All this after I got back and contacted Dr. John at Orthopedic Consultants in Minneapolis. I don't remember exactly when I first contacted him. I remember trying to get a hold of him, and that it took a while even before I'd be able to get an appointment set up with him, which kind of surprised me. It surprised me about all the doctors in the area, how far backed up they were to take new patients. Anyway, Dr. John prescribed a type of traction unit that you fill with water, hang over the back of a door, and you sit on the floor. And you put your head into this thing, and you kind of hang yourself with it to pull pressure or whatever off of your neck. It's kind of a wild contraption, but it works great. Definitely works fantastic. It's one of the things that is still, even today, used a lot of, because a lot of headache pain that I have even today can only be alleviated effectively with that. I went in there and they put that on me for a few minutes and then say, okay, come back again a couple days later. And you know, you'd walk out of the physical therapy department and you wouldn't have any relief. They would do a type of muscle stimulation to get your muscles to relax a little bit. And then they would put you on that traction unit and pull your head back. I saw that there was no relief from that, and that if I kept using the traction unit that I had in my dorm room, that seemed to be better than what I would have if I took time out of my class schedule and went over okay, and so we'll get ready for your 80 lit. So if you need to clear your memory. And so on your 80 lit number 1, you have drug dealer. Drug dealer going out of business. It's all hyphenated. You have, that's it, okay? This is going to be 80 number 1 for 5 minutes. Final. And here we go. Starts in the middle. So both of these elements are proved as well. Let me talk briefly about the defendant, because the defendant took the stand and testified. And what does that mean? Does that mean in our system that when the defendant gets on the stand, you have to believe everything he says? Because I don't know. Because no, of course not. The defendant is a witness just like all the other witnesses. He is subject to the same rules that we apply to all our witnesses. And one of the important rules that we apply to our witnesses is one of the instructions that the judge read to you. And it says this: a witness who is willfully false in one material part of his testimony is to be distrusted in others. You may reject the whole testimony of a witness who willfully has testified falsely as to a material point, unless from all of the evidence you believe the probability of truth favors his testimony in other particulars. Well, what did the defendant get up here and tell you? Well, he told you that he had a miraculous encounter with a stranger who was having a drug dealer going out of business sale. And when he was in line at that gas station, that a total stranger behind him in front of the cashier said, "Hey, buddy, want to buy some weed?" And what luck for the defendant that a huge amount of pot was for sale. A half a pound, bargain basement prices, and you get the little drug dealer starter kit for free. You get the scales and the baggies thrown in just for extra. Okay, so he said it. He got up here and said, "I possessed that marijuana for use." So I guess he's innocent, right? I guess he's not guilty of possession for sale. Of course not. You have to bring your common sense, your life experience to bear. What's happened here? Two police officers who interviewed the defendant separately got up here and said, this guy said, "Yeah, I am selling this stuff." Of course he's selling it. He's packaging it for sale. He's weighing it. He's got the gun. He's got the cash. He's got the extra stuff out in the car. Of course he's selling it, and he admitted it. Well, what does that mean he has to do? He has to get okay, and so then we have your 80 number 2. Lit, you have Mr. Rayburn, Virginia Espinosa, Joseph Mark Hamilton, clerk, Ms. Espinosa, Shirley Kincaid. And this will be 80 number 2 final lit for 5 minutes. As you know, we have a situation here in this trial that is rather confusing, not only for the attorneys, but also for the judge and jury. There are a lot of things involved in this case, and a lot of people are involved in what happened. In order to refresh your recollection, let me remind you of a few important points. Mr. Rayburn is charged with attempted kidnapping. This was brought out several times in the charges that were presented in the information that was read to you. The theory that has been offered and that has thus far been adduced by the prosecution is that Mr. Rayburn and Virginia Espinosa, who by the way is no longer a party defendant in this action, conspired together to in some way kidnap and abduct Joseph Mark Hamilton. The clerk has notified me that we have 23 exhibits that have been offered. 2 of these exhibits are in for identification, and 21 of the exhibits have been received in evidence. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you have seen the exhibits. It is important to our case that you keep them fresh in your mind when we are discussing the facts that have been thus far presented in this courtroom. You will not be asked individually at any time to name off the exhibits, but you may be asked to recall a specific exhibit's relevance to this issue at hand. The defense intends to prove to you, to the best of your ability, the following things. First, that Miss Espinosa is a pathological liar. We have had testimony offered that tends to prove that her version of the facts is not the most accurate version. Miss Espinosa has admitted on the stand that at one time she perjured herself in another case. You must ask yourself if her version of the story is to be believed. Secondly, the defense intends to prove to you that Shirley Kincaid did not tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth. Her perception of this event and what happened before it and after it are highly questionable. The defense feels that certain pertinent facts about her version of this story have been left out to protect another individual. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the third point that we would like to make is that even though Mr. Rayburn might have had an and so that concludes your lit finals. So I'm gonna just close this out and I'm gonna come back with your jury charge finals, okay?